Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition or episode of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is episode number 52. Thank you to everyone who tunes in on a regular basis to find out what we're doing here at the Hare Krishna Project, some of the events we organize, the festivals we organize, our publications, and these podcasts that we put together. And this is another kind of, I probably overuse the term record breaking. This is not really a new world record or anything like that, but it's kind of, we're always exploring and doing new things here on the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. And we are I'm about to welcome our youngest ever guest. It's really good to welcome Ananga Manjari. Dandavat pranams. Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you for wanting to be on the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. And just so everyone's completely aware, because Ananga Manjari is under the age of 18, her parents have given permission for this podcast to take place, which is fantastic. So let's so your congratulations, Ananga Manjari. You're the youngest ever guest on the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. I'm not sure who the oldest ever guest is. I think I know who it might be, but I don't want to embarrass her. It's also a woman. I don't want to embarrass her by saying her. So tell us, Ananga, let's start just by telling us, how long have you been following Krishna consciousness?
Not for my whole life, but I was born like my family being Hindu. And then when we moved to London, maybe from about the age of 5, my parents started going to the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math temple. And then they kind of slowly got into Krishna consciousness. And then I think around the age of 5, I was kind of starting to be raised in it.
So when you say like you were kind of, your family or Hindu, born into a Hindu family, that means that you kind of still follow the kind of Hindu customs and like cultures. Is that what it kind of means, would you say?
Yeah, to this day, we still like a lot of our family are Hindu, so we still have the cultures like Diwali and Durga Puja, Saraswati Puja. We still follow those, but we also we go to the temple and we follow Krishna consciousness and enjoy it a lot.
And your you said that your family started going to the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math temple when you were 5, and that's the temple in East London, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what was it particularly about that temple? Why did they, I mean, there's lots of temples in East London. Why did they choose that one?
It was like nearby, and also like it was quite beautiful. The decoration on the outside, I think, like, you've seen it, right? The cows and the lotus flowers and the picture is quite beautiful. And also the devotees there were very like nice and welcoming at the time. So my parents were like welcomed into the temple.
That's really good. Yeah, I've been to, so if anyone's unsure of which temple we're referring to, it's the Green Street temple, the temple in Green Street in Newham, in the London borough of Newham. I think it's in Newham, run by the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, which is a beautiful temple. I've been a few times, and it's certainly the longest running Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math temple in the UK. And it's it's fun, it's fantastic. So tell us a bit about it. So how often do you go to the temple? I mean, are you a regular? What kind of things do you do there?
I'm quite regular. I try to go every week when I can, but now I'm sort of in my GCSE kind of years, so I go maybe every other week or something. But when I do go to the temple, I help with the service needed there. I listen to the class, do kirtan, share prasadam, associate with the devotees, and things like that.
It's I think because the temple is kind of, I think it probably used to be a house, possibly, before it's a temple. It's very quaint, isn't it? It's quite small, and it's very quaint in the sense that you feel like you're in a home, and there's a real kind of homely experience. Yeah, that's how I feel whenever I go there. So yeah, you've talked about some of the things that happen there. So you've got the kirtan, there's prasadam going on, there's arti, and your parents also serve at the temple as well.
My dad, he works quite a lot, and my mom tends to do a lot of housework. So They don't go as often as me. Sometimes I go alone by train, but sometimes we all go together as a family. I have two younger siblings as well, so sometimes in some festivals, all of us go together, and it's nice then.
Mm. And a bit of a quiz for you. Which big festival is coming up soon?
Coming up soon. Let me think. What is it? In February, is March coming up? Oh, Gora Purnima is coming up.
Gora Purnima, yeah, which
Yeah.
is very, very big in the Gaudiya Vaishnav calendar. The thing that all the different Gaudiya mats have in common, I hope, is they all follow Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we're celebrating his appearance, which is big. And the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math is famous for its prasadam. Always wonderful prasadam at Sri Chaitanya Saraswat temples. So Ananga Manjari, your name Ananga Manjari, is that the name that your parents gave you?
Oh no, that's the name I got with my first initiation. My birth name is different.
Okay, so tell us a bit about that. So you were initiated, you were given the name Ananga Manjari. Maybe tell us who gave you the name and how all of that happened.
Okay, I was maybe around 7 to 8 years old when I got initiation. It was a while ago. I don't remember too much. I remember going to India. It was, I think, in Navadip, and Srila Acharya Maharaj, he gave me initiation. I got the Japamala from him, told me to chant at like, a couple of rounds every day. Don't remember the exact number, but I chanted every day. And I remember it was by the Ganga, and I remember it was a very pleasant experience.
Yeah, wonderful. Was that your first time in India? Out of interest.
Yeah, that was my first time in India.
Wow. And what was it like? What did it feel like being initiated by Acharya Maharaj?
I was just a child, so I was just having fun. I was just playing in the Ganga. I got my Japamala. I was just happy with life.
Yeah. The great thing about being young, I was talking to someone about this the other day, is that you have very few responsibilities, and at the time you think, oh, I hate being a kid, and I wish I was older. But actually, I miss being. I don't miss being in education. I miss being at school where you can just mess around. And, I used to mess around loads in science lessons. I never used to do any work. So Acharya Maharaj, wonderful. So anyone listening or watching isn't quite sure, Acharya Maharaj was the senior Acharya of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math until recently, actually. I think he passed away, left his body, I think it was a year ago, wasn't it? Or a year before that? I can't quite remember.
2022, or 2021. I'm not exactly sure.
So if anyone's unsure of the kind of lineage of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, the founder Acharya was Srila Sridhar Maharaj. His successor was Srila Govinda Maharaj, and then succeeding Govinda Maharaj was Srila Acharya Maharaja, who recently passed away, unfortunately, during the whole COVID thing. And he was relatively young as well, which was very sad. So I have met some disciples of Acharya Maharaj, and you're one of them. So yeah, a great kind of blessing for you. I never met him in person. I've met some of the other acharyas of the mat, such as Janardhan Maharaj, Madhusudan Maharaj, on different trips that they've had here in the UK. So you're studying hard in education. How do you kind of balance, I guess, getting an education with home life, with kind of devotional spiritual life?
I do balance it all.
I love how kind of confident you are. Just, yeah, I balance it all.
When I'm in school, I make sure I focus. Like, I don't mess around like you used to do. I make sure I focus. I take good notes. I ask for help if I don't understand. make sure I also help other students if they don't understand. I do all my homework, and I try to get most of the homework done in school so that at home I can have my free time to do like every day me and my family we do some kirtan, and also to chant my rounds and things like that.
You do kirtan at home with your family?
Yeah, we have like a little temple room we made. Like we have a deity there, and we do puja every day. Not 3 times because we don't have like the time for that, but at least once or twice some things we do.
Mm. Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I have to admit, I don't do kirtan at home every day. I do my japa. I can see your japa is hung up behind you. My japa bag. My japa bag is hung up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for show. It's just where it lives. But I do my japa every day. Sometimes a struggle, if I'm honest. It's good to be honest. But no, I don't do kirtan at home every day. You know, I love how kind of confident you were just now when you said, well, I just do balance it. You know, my education, my home life, my spiritual life, because a lot of you know adults don't balance it very well. There's that challenge of wanting to do devotional activities, and you know people have different opinions of what we mean by that, but devotional activities and you know live a life at home, and you know when you're an adult go out and earn money. If I'm honest, I've never actually had that desire. I do earn money. I have a job, but I haven't got that desire to earn money in that sense. So maybe I'm slightly kind of freed from that, thankfully. But yeah, I just loved your kind of confidence in terms of that balance, and in terms of you know when you go to the temple. Then, in terms of your spiritual or your devotional services there, what's your main saver at the temple? What do you do?
Just whatever people need help with, I'm happy to help with mostly. Like, cause I got second initiation as well from Janardhan Maharaj. I also like with in Hatton Cross, I've helped with things like the fruit offering, and maybe soon I'll learn to do puja. Cause with fruit offering, I might have that experience.
Mm.
And then things with like cooking, I help with if they need help with cleaning and just different things. Like if they want to make decorations for a festival, I'm there to help and all sorts of things.
So do you do kind of Pajari service now? Uh,
Um, Not regularly, no,
no,
but if like mostly in Haddon Cross, when I stay there for like a week or few weeks, I try to do that.
that's great. And it's yeah, the Hatton Cross Temple or the kind of West London temple has got quite a bit of space. Um, yeah, I love going to visit there because it's very spacious and it feels very kind of sattvic, very clean, you know. And like you and I first met, that must be 3 or 4 years ago now. We met at the Bhakti Yoga Institute. Sounds very posh, doesn't it? The Institute, which is good. So that I actually, if I'm honest, I wasn't aware that you were a second initiated, or you know, and I wasn't aware that Janardhan Maharaj had kind of given you second initiation. Anyone, a lot of the people in Ananga Manjari that kind of watch or listen to this podcast are from different Gaudiya groups. So some will be in ISKCON, some will be in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and different groups will do initiations slightly differently. Some have different preferences on ages, some have different preferences on you know what happens and how it happens. And my personal view is that's all fine. It's fine. The details aren't really always that important. It's kind of where we're the goal in life that we're kind of aiming to. But some of you might have heard there that Ananga Manjari mentioned the name Janardhan Maharaj. So Janardhan Maharaj is a sannyasi I have a lot of time for. He is a kind of original Diksha disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Was given sannyas, I think, by Srila Prabhupada in 1972, which is like a whole world away, a whole world ago, you know, 1972. And is now one of the senior sannyasis in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math. So yeah, he's I've always had a lot of respect for him. He's yeah, he's you know following all of his, you know, he's followed Srila Prabhupada, Srila Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj. He's certainly in my mind, he's certainly up there in terms of spiritual guides and teachers. And any listeners and viewers in ISKCON who are wondering about kind of second initiation. So it's the same in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math. So you're then able to kind of do deity service, or Pajari service, and offer fruit and offer various items. So, you know, so it's actually quite similar. And Ananga Manjari, well, Ananga Manjari, I'm not even second initiated. I'm still at the very lower level of the lower echelons, operating feet on one. That's, you might not know what that joke's about, but yeah, so I'm not even at the level. So to be able to provide that, to do that service, and to serve, you know, Gauranga, Radha Krishna in that way, it must be quite humbling actually to get so close to the deities. How does it feel when you're doing that service?
I'm not sure, but I think I made sure before I got the second initiation, I asked Srila Acharya Maharaja, who gave me first initiation, for the permission, like if I was ready for it. And he like completely agreed, and it was meant to be him who gave it, but unfortunately he passed away before it happened. So so because I was given the permission, I feel like sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I'm not fully qualified to do the service, but I still try and think I do it for the spiritual development and to serve in things. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And sometimes when I'm sitting in a temple and there's arti going on, and you're obviously sitting behind the Pajari, and you see the Pajari, you know, offering a flower or offering candles, it just looks like such an art. It's so kind of, you know, that it's a whole kind of artistic spiritual process, you know, and yeah, it's quite an experience, I think, when you're sitting in an artist's ceremony. Yeah, so maybe one day, maybe I'll be at that level of a second initiation one day. So what are your plans for the future? I mean, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years time?
In terms of careers, I'm not like so sure about that. I'm still thinking about which subjects I'm going to be pursuing. Like, maybe my plans are to find that career and to pursue it. Yeah, that's in terms of like, I guess, material plans. But I also want to be like, you know, a good person in life. I want to make like a difference, do something good and help society. And I guess in terms of like spiritual plans, I want to like continue with what I'm doing, everything, and keep up the association and keep learning and things like that.
Mm. And you like to read, I think, possibly, maybe. Do you like to read?
I've got loads of books. I love to read.
Do you know, as I was asking that question, I could see the books. And you can be honest, if they're not devotional books, that's fine. I mean, it's good to have a broad reading thing.
Yeah, I've got all sorts of books. Like I've got like just, you know, normal books any teenager adult would read, and I've also got I've got a mix of books.
Yeah, that's good. I remember when we first met a couple of years ago at the Bhakti Yoga Institute, and I think it was a Saturday class, and somebody was giving class. I have to admit, I don't remember who. And you were asking all these questions about the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I was thinking, whew, I haven't got a clue what she's on about, you know. I was probably thinking what I was going to eat for supper or what I was doing the next day, and you were thinking about Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, or whatever, you know, the class was about. And I was like, wow, you know a lot about kind of spiritual, or you have a desire to know a lot about spiritual issues, which is really, really good. So what is it about kind of spiritual literature and Krishna consciousness that you like? What is it about you that you find appealing, that you find appealing in it?
I like learning in general. Like when I read something, it just makes me feel really happy and just really like satisfied with myself. Like I'm reading something and learning something, like even in school that way. Like when I've like completely learned something and passed an exam, I just feel really happy about it. And it's the same with like the spiritual books. Like sometimes I have like questions about like just things in general, and something about the way they're written, it's like very beautiful to read, and it just like if you're ever like bored or in a bad mood and you start reading, it can make you feel quite nice, you know?
Mm, mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's kind of really encouraging to know, in terms of you just really like reading and you love learning new things. Well, do you, in terms of, you go, in terms of being in education, some of your peers in the classroom, um, do they know you're a Hare Krishna devotee? Or and if they do, do they ask questions? How do they kind of relate to that?
A lot of kids my age, they're not so interested about religion.
Mm,
So most people, when you like talk to them, they don't really ask about your religion and stuff. So I don't really bring it up because if it's not something they want to know about, then that's okay. But some people they do ask, and when they do ask, I tend to be open about it. I say I'm like Vaishnava is like type of Hinduism is and things like that. And sometimes they ask questions, and we talk about a little.
mm, mm. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of um some of your kind of Hindu friends, do they ask, are they, do they express any interest in Krishna consciousness, in Gaudiya teachings?
I did talk to I don't have too many Hindus in my school, but I did speak for some reason. But I did speak to one once, and then she was happy with the like way she was already with her religion, and I respected that because she still did a lot of the things that I do, but it's just slightly different, and it's okay. You have time and you can develop.
Mm.
Mm.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's really encouraging, and you know, I'm, I, I would love for more younger people to be interested in Krishna consciousness, and I'm sure, actually, I'd like to think everyone listening and watching this podcast would be interested in more people taking an interest in Krishna consciousness. So I think your story is actually quite inspiring, in terms of being a young person, being in education, but also being a Pajari at your local Hare Krishna temple, in terms of doing seva. And you often, during kind of school holidays, you give up time, don't you, to live in the temple, and to do service. And yeah, it's very inspiring, actually, because certainly when I was your age, I was becoming interested in religion. I started going to church when I was 16, but I wouldn't have given up my holidays for it. I would have just kind of done my own thing instead, and probably just sat at home, watch TV, and ate chocolate or something like that, and put on a lot of weight. Um, so that was my school holidays when I was kind of 16, 17. Okay. Is there anything else you particularly want to tell us about yourself in terms of Krishna consciousness? You've got you've got a younger brother, younger sister, I think.
Yeah.
And are they kind of also taking an interest in spiritual life as well, like you have done?
I think so. I mean, I think my little sister, she's like 5. She's kind of like sometimes she just wants to play and do silly things that kids do, and that's okay. But like sometimes we encourage her to like join us in the kirtan, to sit and listen.
Mm,
She can play while she listens, and that's okay because she's still like hearing, and hearing is a type of service, like the hearing and Shravanam Kirtanam, doing kirtan and doing puja, the different types of service. Hearing is also one, so it also works. And then my little brother also, he engages in kirtan, um and also like since we do go to the temple every now and then, I think it's like a slowly growing interest maybe.
mm. And I've
Mm.
also, Ananga Manjari, that reminds me, I have seen you on Saturday Night Harinams, haven't I? You've been out on Harinams on a Saturday night with other devotees from Green Street, from Hatton Cross. What is it about the Saturday Night Harinams that you really, really like?
Harinam is so energetic, and there are people, even the people who are not devotees, like in like the street, they seem like really, a lot of them do seem quite happy, and they seem like really, they seem to gain energy with around us, and it's also like really fun. Like it's another opportunity to associate with devotees, an opportunity to preach. It's a really nice thing.
Mm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's wonderful. I love Harinam. I wish I was able to get out and do Harinam more often, but I love Harinam. That kind of, it's kind of giving bhakti for free to people, chanting the holy names, which is the kind of Dharma Yuga for this age, sharing the holy names, chanting the holy names with the public. And Harinams in a busy place like London on a Saturday night is a great kind of, space and platform to do that. I loved, I've just wrote down what you just said. Hearing is a sign of, is a type of service. And you've kind of, I'm not sure if you've been conscious of it, but certainly through this podcast and through other conversations I've had with devotees at in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, there's a real focus on service, on seva, isn't there? It's that all of kind of, life is about service to Guru and Gauranga. And I really like that kind of focus on seva, service, giving to others. Something that I really love about the mat. So I've actually written that down. I have to say, hearing is a type of service, which means if I don't want to join in the kirtan, I could just sit there and listen. So it's a service.
It does work, but singing the kirtan is more service, is double.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to chant the holy names audibly. That makes sense. So we can all hear it. So Krishna can always hear it, because Krishna's kind of, God can always hear it. You'd have to shout loud so he can hear in heaven. But that's fantastic. Yeah. And so how often do you get out on the Saturday Night Harinams?
I used to go quite often. Like there was a period when I'd go every week, but now it's quite hard to go because like they start quite late at night and things, like they don't start at I remember you tried to go once, but I don't think you need you didn't know that if it says it starts at 3 o'clock, it doesn't actually start at 3 o'clock. It starts later than that. Like a lot of us in the temple, we've just grown used to that. Like we say it starts early, but because we end up going late. But I think if it started earlier, then maybe I'd go more often, but it's quite difficult too.
I have to be honest with you. I have OCD with timekeeping. If someone says a particular time, in my head, that's the time. So the Hare Krishnas was the wrong movement for me to join. I'm being sarcastic because it's the only group. I'm sure there's lots of people like it, but it's the one group of people in the world I've ever met that are like terrible at timekeeping. And I remember I turned up for that Harinam and I waited for a whole hour outside.
I felt bad for not telling you that.
And there was 2 other devotees that were coming for the first time as well with you guys, and we even even another sannyasi walked past us, said, "Oh, I won't be on for several hours yet," and he went somewhere else. I won't say his name. That was quite funny, actually. Yeah. Well, hopefully, when as we're kind of moving into the spring now, you'll be able to do, and it gets lighter at night, or it stays lighter for longer. You'll be able to go out on Harinams, as well. Okay. Well, believe it or not, we've been chatting for about half an hour. And we have already, and we've got through some of the questions, all the questions that we kind of discussed before the podcast. Is there anything else you particularly want to share with us? I mean, you're possibly, you know what, I think possibly you might be the youngest Pajari in Great Britain, which is like your claim to fame, quite possibly.
I'm not exactly a Pujari. I haven't really done puja yet. Just fruit offering. It's not exactly. Kind of, but not exactly.
I stand corrected.
Okay.
You'll be one of, once you start, you'll be one of. Okay, fantastic. So I'd certainly encourage all the listeners and viewers to this week's episode of the Hare Krishnas In Britain podcast to visit the Green Street Temple in the London borough of Newham. It's run by the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and I think it's been there for about 30 years. I have a feeling that 1992 it was opened, quite possibly, and it was the Mat's only temple in the UK for many decades, and it's really small. I mean, in the sense, well, it's not small in the sense there's lots of space and there's lots of floors, being 3 or 4 stories, I think. But the actual temple room is quite small, so it's quite kind of, you know, compact. And then about 10 years ago, I think, was it 10 years ago, the Mat opened a new temple right next to Heathrow Airport called the Bhakti Yoga Institute, which has got lots of space. And it's a wonderful temple, and the devotees there work really hard to serve prasadam to the public. They have a prasadam distribution program called Feed Them All, and also they have wonderful kirtans and just wonderful space in the temple to really kind of, you know, get into kirtan and kind of really experience the kirtan. And there's always opportunities for seva there, isn't there? You know, I've spent many times in the past stuck in the kitchen washing up, you know, yeah, so it's a great place to go to. So Ananga Manjari, it's been fantastic to have you as guest 52 of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. It's great that you wanted to be on the podcast. We've had a whole range of ages and people from different backgrounds over the last 2 years now, since this podcast has been taking place. So I will just say goodbye to the people at home, and then you and I can have a very quick debrief after. So thank you everyone for tuning into this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, please do put a positive comment. Please do like, love, or care for it. Different kind of emojis or emotions that you can react. And if you do want to be a guest on a future edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast, please do send the Hare Krishna Project a message. We've got some quite big guests coming up, actually. I've been spending the last few days just kind of not persuading people, but sorting out times and dates when people are free. And actually, Ananga Manjari, we have another guest from the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math in just a few weeks' time coming up, but I'm not going to say any more than that. So until next week, we'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare